Good evening, everyone. Nice to see everyone. Welcome. My name is Alana Cooper. I direct Jewish lifelong learning here at Siegal, Case Western Reserve University. Nice to see everyone here this evening for Professor Oded Zehavi's talk, The Many Faces of Israeli Music. I'm going to introduce him in a moment, but before I do, I just want to let you know, first of all, that this program tonight is part of the Violins of Hope program that's been here in Cleveland over the past few months, which has been sponsored by a number of organizations in addition to Case Western Reserve University. They include Cleveland Institute of Music, the Cleveland Orchestra, Facing History and Ourselves, Idea Stream, the Jewish Federation of Cleveland, and the Maltz Museum of Jewish Heritage have all come together to bring programs like this here to Cleveland. The other announcement that I want to make is that our gift shop Treasures is open in the back. Hanukkah is coming soon. Gifts need to be bought. And Treasures supports is part of the Friends of Jewish Lifelong Learning and supports everything that we do here. So you kill two birds with one stone by buying gifts at their gift shop. Please go shopping after the lecture. Finally, I want to tell you about a few of our upcoming programs. Right after Thanksgiving, we have a couple of classes that are starting. We have a class called Spiritual Revolutionaries, Ideas of Hasidic Masters, that will be taught by Rabbi Zachary Truboff on Monday afternoons. And I'll be teaching a class as part of our new Jewish Boot Camp series. The course is called Judaism Today, Current Issues, and that is on Thursday evenings. If you haven't registered yet, reserve yourself a spot. As I said, we start right after Thanksgiving. And I also want to give you a heads up about our next lecture, which isn't until December, but mark it on your calendars. By the way, this is my cheat sheet. It's on your chairs. So please take it home with you. But we have Professor Martin Schickman coming from Eastern Michigan University. He'll be speaking about the campus movement to boycott, divest, and sanction Israel. Should be a very interesting lecture. And with that, I want to introduce our speaker, Professor Oded Zehavi, who comes to us from Israel, from Haifa. He is here for the semester as a Schusterman visiting artist. He was one of the founding members of the music department at the University of Haifa, and he's a renowned composer. We're so lucky to have him here in Cleveland. And while he's been here, he's also traveled around the country to Arizona, to Chicago, to New York with his music, speaking and also premieres of his musical compositions. So he'll have a very interesting and enlightening perspective for us on Israeli music as really an insider. Please give him a warm welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here again. I'm very touched by the kind hospitality of Cleveland in general and the Jewish community in particular. If at any point I'm starting to cough and sneeze and make no sense, blame it on the flu. I mean, one of the novelties that I'm encountering here is the cold weather. I guess that in Israel, I mean, you know, a winter is 70 degrees, you know, so. But we'll try to have fun. So this is a horrible title for a lecture. If someone asks you for a title on a cultural issue, never say the many faces of Israeli music or anything. It is so wide open, and there are so many faces to Israeli music that I really had to make a tough decision. What am I going to focus on? Is there such a thing as Israeli music? For tonight's talk, we'll assume that music that is written in Israel, and I may add that could have been written only in Israel, is Israeli music. And I'm going to focus and introduce 3 or 4, depending on our time, examples of things that can happen only in Israel. First of all, I have to say that Israeli music always had foreign influences. It was never a pure entity. You might recognize some of these great influences on Israeli popular song. You can see here Paul Robeson and John Baez and the Weavers. They were extremely popular in the 60s in Israel. Whenever they still come, I think John Baez is still walking and talking. So if you will come today to Israel, you will feel the biggest halls, really. Georges Brassens and Le Frère Jacques, once again in the 50s, in the 60s, we wanted to embrace French culture. I prepared this lecture way back. And then, of course, the Beatles and these other guys, Led Zeppelin, the Stooges, Bob Dylan, all of them made a mark on Israeli music. People liked their music. The Israeli radio aired their music left and right. People were trying to be the Israeli Beatles and the Israeli Stooges and the Israeli Bob Dylan. Except they did it in Hebrew, which made rock and pop sound quite awkward. I have nothing against Hebrew, it's a great language. But as a musical language, it has its problems. Really. I'm going to introduce a couple of interesting examples to some of the more original blends that happened in Israel. The first guy here was born in 1950 at the name of Leonidas Polikiari to parents that were Holocaust survivors from Saloniki. He was born in the suburbs of Haifa, and his high school education is made of 1 year at middle school, after which he quit, went back to the suburbs of Haifa and opened women's hairdressing salon. At the same time, he also picked up the electric guitar and started to play. He found great ways of expressing himself through music, maybe because he was also a stutterer. And he felt that like playing gives him a real voice. At the age of 18, he was auditioned to the famous Lahakat HaNachal, a military entertainment troupe, and was not accepted because even though he played great solo guitars, he couldn't read music. So after half a year in the army, he left and established a band that played in weddings in the northern area of Israel. They played really unusual music. They played progressive rock, and this guy was the solo guitarist. It didn't take long, since Israel is a small country, until people from the center, Tel Aviv, which is 50 minutes away from drive from Haifa, discovered him and brought him to the center, to the capital of the recording industry, where he have started to play as a sidekick to various singers. Pretty soon, he have established his own group that was called Benzene, which is fuel, high octane, and which made one of the loudest rock bands in the Tel Aviv area and won an incredible success with the young generation. Most people would have settled at that level of career. And there are many others that kept doing it, just rocking and playing and entertaining. But this guy that changed his name by now to Yehuda Poliker had a deeper urge, together with his artistic and long life partner, Yehuda Gilad. They have decided to go back to their roots and actually, at a late age of 40, talk to their parents about what the parents went through. The result was one of the most moving discs that came out of Israel, that dealt with the Holocaust through the eyes of those of the second generation, of the sons of the survivors. They were trying to capture in the artistic tools of popular music something that can almost not be expressed with words or even with music. Luckily enough, I found a good English translation to Poliker's most interesting song, to my mind. It is called Window to the Mediterranean Sea, Chalon Layam HaTichon. And these are the lyrics. We'll listen to the music. I gazed into your eyes as the train left and never wrote one single time. Deep in my heart I remember and cry as faces pass me by. Drowned in the loss of the city, from out of the ashes came hope. I lived in an old dirty building just like the one that no one knows. Small room, yet here I found shelter, and these walls are place I can call home. Mournful my mornings forever as I stare at the ocean alone. From the high above for a sign out in the cold, and I'll fly as a dove as I stare at the ocean alone. Misty December, the 50s, I shiver from the wind that blows, shows on my room seems so empty, so white, yet I remember all. Forever my wounds to be open. Oh, how I wish you were by my side. I'll play and we'll sing these together, the words that letters can describe. Here you'll find shelter and safety. Through the storm, a heaven will rise. Children will sing, and it make me feel embarrassed by the Mediterranean Sea. From high above, for a sign out in the cold, and I'll fly as a dove as I stare at the ocean alone. In the original Hebrew thing, the protagonist is located in Jaffa, and he says that he took shelter in refugees' house, in a house that was left by its original owners. In a very delicate way, Poliker touches the destiny, the mutual destiny of those who were moved from their homes. The musical language of this song is also very, very interesting blend. Since Israel has no region musically, you know, the Israeli music always was European, and we are surrounded by Arab countries that has different kind of music, really different. One of the nearest possible neighbors or partners for dialogue was the Greek music. The Greeks and the Cyprians were some kind of Middle Eastern others that we could communicate with. And Greek music became very popular in Israel. Not only popular Greek music like Zorba, but also art music from Greece. And Poliker was amongst the first popular artists that created Israeli sound, electric, and everything else, together with some Greek influences. I would like to play for you now this song. Try to listen to this kind of sadness or expressiveness that has nothing to do with melancholy, that has to do with life going on through music, through sounds. So. Can it be turned up? The volume?
נסעתי ולא כתבתי מזמן, עכשיו את כל כך חסרה לי, חבל, חבל שאת לא כאן. אחרי שהגעתי ליפו, תקוות נולדו מתוך ייאוש, מצאתי לי חדר וחצי על גג של בית נטוש. יש פה מיטה מתקפלת, עם זה שלושתנו לישון, את, אני והילד, מול חלון משקיף לים התיכון. ואולי מרחוק יש סיכוי אחד למיליון, ואולי מרחוק איזה אושר מתגנב אל החלום. שנת 50 סוף דצמבר, בחוץ מלחמת רוחות, השלג צנח כאן לפתע, לבן מזכיר לי נשכחות. עוד הפצע פתוח, הייתי איתי עכשיו, הייתי פשוט מספר לה את מה שלא יגיד מכתב. כאן אם תרצי יש לך בית, ואותי יהיה לך המון, צחוק ילדים בין הבית, וחלון משקיף לים התיכון.
Only in Israel, a Holocaust song, Holocaust survivors' experience can become such a smash hit. I mean, this song and this record was at the top of the charts for like 5 years. You could see a little bit of the crowd, you know, with their candles, with this very intense topic. Only in Israel, a mixture of Greek, instruments, with rock band, with a singer that is moving in and out of the Greek way of singing and using Hebrew words, can make it into such, I would say, a unique and powerful experience. In general, if we think about it, the two kings of Israeli rock, Yehuda Poliker and Shlomo Artzi, are sons of Holocaust survivors. I don't know whether this is the meaning of melting pot, of renewal of the Jewish culture in its country. I don't know. But we can tell that this appeals to the masses. This is not some esoteric intellectual experiment. It's something that touches people. The other, or the next example that I want to give starts with the many phases of incorporation of ethnicity into Israeli music. From the very first days of the Jewish settlements in Palestine, the Yemenites were interesting. They were different, they were exotic, not only with their looks and the language, but they were highly respected because they were believed to have preserved some ancient traditions because they dwelled away from the European civilization. They lived in the deserts. So there was always multi-layered interest in their culture, in the music, in the literature that was preserved, in the way they sing. And this goes from the very first days of the Israeli music. There was a strong attempt to incorporate Yemenite elements into what is happening. I want to play for you brief examples of 3 appearances of Yemenite folk themes in Israeli music. The first example represents for me the successful attempts of Israeli composers to incorporate Yemenite folk songs in symphonic pieces. The first and I would say the most famous one was Mordechai Seter, and his piece, Tikkun Chatzot, Midnight's Vigil, is an incredible example of how small melodic segments can turn into a very powerful symphonic piece. But I would like to play for you something somewhat more humble. The singer that you see here in the picture is Gila Bashari. She was born in 1950 to a family of traditional musicians. Her father had a wedding band, and Gila started to sing with him. He taught her men's and women's literature and songs, and she started to perform with an eye at the popular music field. She won 5th prize in the Oriental Medieval Music Festival, Song Festival in Israel, which is not a big deal. But then her career took a really interesting turn. One day, I don't know how, a composer named Mark Kopitman that immigrated to Israel from Russia and was one of the leaders of Israeli avant-garde in the 70s, heard her and incorporated a solo segment performed by her in his orchestral piece, Memories. This piece won an international success to levels that you wouldn't believe. It was performed in Boston. It was performed with the Philadelphia Orchestra, once again, Boston Symphony, Philadelphia Orchestra, New York Philharmonic, LA Philharmonic, the Israeli Philharmonic. Everywhere she would go and sing that, and that became her trademark. In later years, she kept singing with orchestras, and I want to play for you a small segment from her performance of Laner Ulibsamim. The text of it basically say, my soul yearns for the sweet scents and flavors of Havdalah. You know, that's the end of Shabbat ceremony. The text is by Rabbi Shalom Shabazi, and the tune is believed to go back to the 15th century. And this is a modern arrangement with the Ra'anana Symphonette, conducted by Nir Kabariti, who is the musical director of the Santa Barbara Symphony. Once again, pay attention to how this ethnic singing goes with the symphony that is at the background. It's quite interesting.
للنار وعلى بصامي من نفسي ما يا حلا للنار وعلى بصامي نفسي ما يا حلا إيمتي تنولي كاس يا عين العبد الله إيمتي تنولي كاس يا عين العبد الله.
Different reading of the same theme can be found in the next example, where we can hear Achinoam Nini, Noah, Yemenite by birth, singing. She took all the recordings of a singer named Miriam Tzafari, which was a very big thing in the early 50s, and added modern tracks with her voice on top of it.
Saluda rochim li.
This is already Achinoam Nina.
לכם עלה.
All right. Now, everybody embrace yourself. Now we have something completely different. The last 3 years, Yemenite music moved to a different direction with a group called Yemen Blues. It is made of people that came from the realm of world music. The percussionist played with John Zorn, the guitarist played with Yo-Yo Ma, the soloist played with his mother, and Ravid Kahalani, authentic Yemenite singer. As you can tell by the picture, they departed a little bit. Where is Ravid Kahalani? Departed a little bit from the tradition. But they are wonderful musicians, and regardless of anything, they are based in Israel. They perform everywhere. By the way, they are quite popular in Arabic countries. They performed in Tunisia, they performed in Turkey. Let's listen to a portion of it.
سلام الله عليكم يا خواتي في اليمن يا خواتي يا حياتي ردوني
The language is still Yemenite.
سلام الله عليكم يا خواتي في اليمن يا خواتي يا حياتي ردوني بالسلام ما أحلى السلام ما أحلى السلام ما أحلى السلام يا خواتي في اليمن ما أحلى السلام ما أحلى السلام ما أحلى السلام يا خواتي في اليمن
By the way, I have to say that all these three examples coexist very peacefully in today's Israel music scene. They have their own fans. I mean, Noah is going in one direction. People are listening to Gila Bashari when they want to listen to something more traditional. And people listen to Yemen blues basically because they love the rhythm and the sound and everything. But this is definitely something that happens. Now for a minor Ashkenazi representation in this lecture. Andre Haidu was born in Hungary in 1932, survived the Holocaust as a kid. Escaped from Hungary actually during the Hungarian Revolution to Paris, where he studied composition with Darius Milhaud and Olivier Messiaen. From Paris, he moved where? Right, to Tunisia. spent there 2 years, taught composition, and moved to Israel in 1966. Actually, he came as an ethnomusicologist because in his youth, he was trained actually by Bartok and Kodai to collect gypsy songs and notate them. So he moved to Israel, got a position at the Hebrew University, started to collect klezmer music from Tzefat, and very, very soon became an important composer. He's one of the musicians that had never a problem with coherency. His music represents a large variety of styles and ideas, but there is something very soulful. At one point he wrote an interesting piece named Truat Melech for Giora Feidman, the famous bass clarinetist. And as it sometimes happened, you have to wait for a different performer than the one that it was written for to see the full beauty of the piece. And I want to play for you a short excerpt from the piece played by the Ashdod Symphony. This is one city that is not as lucky as Bet She'an, because Clevelanders don't know this city. But it's an interesting city that has very rich cultural life. The Ashdod Symphony Orchestra is made mainly of Russian immigrants, and it is conducted by Louis Gorelik, who is an immigrant from Chile. So we have Hungary, Russia, Chile. The soloists, by the way, represent the minority of female bass clarinetists, and he's an Israeli born. He's a suburb. Now just think, for a religious, I didn't mention it, he's a religious, Orthodox religious Jew, to hear Kol Nidrei played and not sang, played by a woman on a very, very low range, is by itself a statement. And the fact that there is something so soulful with such an arrangement that takes the prayer out of the synagogue, puts it in a concert hall, exactly like Poliker took his parents' memories and put them in the concert hall, and Gila Bashari and the other Yemenite singers took the heritage and put it in front of the audience. Some interesting mix of old and new that can happen only in Israel. And you know, we tend, while I'm there, I'm complaining all the time. I mean, it's really, I think it's just because of the wonderful coffee at Starbucks that I'm so positive now. But I think that the tolerance and the openness towards all these things characterizes to a great degree what is happening in Israel. I want to conclude with something completely different, like really different. The latest wave of immigration to Israel was from Ethiopia. The Ethiopian music is quite different than what we are used to, and there are cultural elements that are quite different. One of the most beautiful manifestations of Ethiopian semi-cultural, semi-folk art meeting Israel culture is with this dance group called Eskesta. The dancers are Ethiopians, the choreographer is Israeli, and the music incorporates elements of Ethiopian singing with very contemporary techniques. So let's watch like a couple of minutes from this work. And they are very soft-spoken, so we need to turn it up. Isn't it an amazing soundtrack? I did it. Yeah. No, but it was based on their singing. But what I want to say is that wandering, traveling, immigrating, being refugees, settling, yearning for homeland, layers after layers of Jewish experience is melted into the Israeli music scene. Of course, we have other kind of musics. We have purely classical music. We have rock and pop. We have silly music. We have dance music. We have music that even I cannot define, but makes tons of money. But once again, if you want to find interesting Israeli music, it's up there for grabs. And don't trust only what the Federation brings you here. Make your own research, get into YouTube, find an interesting artist and start exploring. You might find stuff that resonates, some interesting and deep core in your souls. Thank you very much. I'll take questions.
Thank you so much, Oded. We're open for questions.
I heard the performance of your music at CIM, and I liked it very much. So I wonder if you could tell us something about your music and your role in Israeli music.
I have an important role in Israeli music now. I belong to a generation, but thank you. First of all, thank you. It's very kind of you to say it. I like people that listen to my music and still talk to me afterwards. I belong to a generation that got most of its education abroad. Me and a lot of my colleagues have studied in the United States. Once again, most of us at the East Coast. So we are all product of living in Israel, growing in Israel. Most of us served in the army, some of us saw firsthand battlefield, and then we went to the States, gotten some higher education. And I think that almost all of us have returned to Israel and making a statement that we would like to teach and write there. Me, like many of my colleagues, all over the world, I believe, are trying to stay relevant. We write about what bothers us. I am echoing a lot of my memories, personal and national memories. I think that even though we swore as we were young that we wouldn't bother ourselves with the questions of national identity, we'll be people of the world, all of us are going back into an inner search for identity. I will just say that on top of, or aside from composing and teaching and being a father of 2 teenagers, thus far 5 jobs, I'm also doing some research about the shofar and its role as a musical instrument. And I found myself really, like 10 years ago, going back to my Jewish origins somehow to look for more, I would say, stimuli, but to be more honest, for some identity quests. So I made some interesting circle around myself, like all composers. More questions? Yeah.
Unique to Israeli settlement was the communal collective spirit of the kibbutzim. Mm-hmm. Did any special music emerge from those settlements, from the people from within, given the rather unique nature of the land?
This is such an interesting question. Well, I'll try to give you an intuitive answer. I'm talking now as not as a scholar that have researched it, but I can tell 2 things. First of all these kibbutzim had a lot of functional music that was written for their own needs. Some of it traveled and stayed part of or became part of the Israeli culture. But a lot of it stayed in the kibbutzim. If you go today to Kibbutz Yagur, they have their own music for Seder Pesach that only they know. And I think that when the music moved from being distributed by composers, by teachers, by singers into the mass media, into the radio, and later on television, a lot of these composers from the kibbutzim stayed outside of the main road. Still, there is great music, and there are lately scholarly researchers exploring it and bringing some of it to performance.
I'm gonna ask a question. You alluded to it when you spoke about Yemen blues, but I wonder if you might speak about some of the Israeli composers and artists who have sort of made it on the world stage.
Right. Well, I'm going to say something horrible. As long, like in every other thing, but don't quote me. Like in every other thing, we were at the mercy. No, that's fine. I mean, that's a stage gesture. We were at the mercy of our big brothers, mainly the Americans. When Leonard Bernstein wanted to promote an Israeli composer, when it fit the political agenda in the States, like in '48, when we were the David and not the Goliath, we have gotten a very fair representation here. Mordechai Setter, Paul Ben Chaim, Eden Partosh. When we became big boys and we weren't so needy, we've discovered that we are competing with the rest of the musical scene. You know, it's no more discounts for being an Israeli. You have to fight with Pierre Boulez and with Aaron Copland and Bernstein. And it's quite difficult. It's difficult because we are not part of, I would say, the main road in the classical music. I mean, we would like to fancy ourselves. We have one good orchestra. Listen, have you been to Ben Gurion Airport? Right, it's a regional small airport, you know, in American terms. We have 12 gates, wow. You know, I think that even Cleveland has more, no insult. So the same is about, I mean, you know, we are trying. So here and there, we have people that are making it on the international stages. Here and there, we are getting performances. I've gotten good performances. A lot of my colleagues are getting performances, but to say that Israeli music is a topic that will ever be studied at Juilliard, I doubt it, unless something drastic or dramatic will happen. But we're in good company. How many of you have heard of Portuguese music or Turkish music? I mean, they have great composers, really. I mean, that's the either fascinating or frustrating thing. Wherever you put your finger, you find great music. All right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
A few years ago, we went to hear Noah. She was actually here in Cleveland more recently, but this was back in Michigan about 6 years ago. And she appeared with a Palestinian woman who I think was
Mira Awad.
Yes, and I think she was on that slide that you showed.
True.
So I'm just curious to know, well, first of all, if you could say a few words in general about Israeli-Palestinian collaboration in music.
Yes. It is a match that will have to happen eventually. Israelis wanted for so many years to be Semites. And now I see the young Palestinians that want to be Westerns. So we have to meet somewhere in the middle. It happens in small dosages, especially in the north of Israel. At the university where I teach, Jews and Arabs are studying music together. And there is a very interesting dialogue that is spontaneous. Most of the teachers are Westernly trained. There are two problems in that. Mira Awad was mainly condemned by her people for being a traitor. If a Palestinian artist would like to collaborate now with Israelis, they will have problems with their own people. And until something there will happen, there will be difficulties. The other thing is that if you look closely at the Palestinian young generation, they want to be Americans. I'm not kidding. You know, we are losing good students to places like Case Western, like Cleveland State University has a huge amount of Palestinian musicians, good ones, very good ones, that feels, I guess, that they cannot develop in Israel. There were times where we have lost good students to France, where no one wants to go nowadays. My generation of Arab musicians was trained together with Vietnamese musicians in Russia. I think that will be a dream when we will be able to do that. Look, just because my wife is not here, I'll tell you that. I'm married to a percussionist, but it would be a dream to work with an Arab drummer, really. The instruments and the approach to the instrument. And my wife is from Santa Cruz, a great school. But so we are waiting for that to happen. When it will be possible, great stuff will come out of the region, really.
I wonder if you would comment. I noticed last night at the Israeli Philharmonic that there were fewer women in the orchestra than what we're used to, say, here in Cleveland. Can you comment on that?
Now I'm going to say a bunch of tasteless things. I'm going to blame the cough medicine on the following thing. Okay. Israeli Philharmonic and Cleveland Orchestra has the same amount of African-American players in it, which is none. No, one, the Cleveland. We have, the Israeli Philharmonic has one Far Eastern player. She sits in the back row of the violas. The Cleveland Orchestra has many of them. There are more women in the Israeli Philharmonic, but only one of them is a principal. This is a principal violist. She's from Philadelphia, from Melrose Park, and she has a law degree from Yale. I don't know how all that adds to it, but she's a tough cookie. So she's the principal violist of the Israel Philharmonic. Other than that, the orchestra nowadays is much younger than it used to be. Last year, like 15 string players retired at the same time, and they had no choice. They had to take young people. The concertmeister for the first part, the one that looks like a baby, is a baby, and he's from Columbus, Ohio. His father is a composer professor of composition there, Jan Reginsky, and his sister is a doctor. So he's a real Jew, so everything is fine. Very good. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Support the art, listen to Israeli music.